Hey guys, I wanted to do another Q&A and fill you guys in on a couple of conversations from this past week. I just wanted to clarify a couple things real quick. You know, the way that I do these 40-day challenges, they're not a UTC. If you look in the UTC manual, please recognize that it is being updated all the time. And there are things in there that you won't see in the next edition. Specifically, when you look at the fats, and when you're looking at the seed oils in there, those will be removed for obvious reasons that I've talked about. So it's been about 2 years since I updated that manual. I'm in the process of doing that, and several parts of the manual will either be updated with the latest research, or some things will be absolutely removed. So I'm just giving you an example here that the science is always changing. I think you guys have the 11th or 12th version, maybe even the 13th. But I do that because science is always changing. And just please understand that the 40-day challenges that I started back in March had to do with specific topics. So the first one was on the immune system, and then we kind of like went into the breathing stuff the next time, and we went into the parasympathetic nervous system. We went into meditation. We did all kinds of stuff the second time around, which is, by the way, your rest and digest system. So we went topics. If you look in the UTC manual, you will see B4 breathing methods in there. If you just look through the manual, you will see that there's a part that talks about breath work. There's a part that talks about parasympathetic nervous system. But this is not a UTC. And the reason why I say that is because the UTC is set up in a way to address things without letting you know that you're addressing it. So this time around, like, I'm talking about things that I do. I'm just showing you guys, look, I make food like this. This is how I train. This is my routine. I answer your questions. I explain to you like the day one about my sleep. This is the mouth tape. This is the Breathe Right strips. This is the stuff, all the stuff that I do to set up for myself. I'm trying to demonstrate that you can make amazing food literally in less than 10 minutes. And you don't even have to be in the kitchen. There's no reason to not be successful and to eat right. And just trying to show you guys, this is how I shop. This is what I buy. This is what I like to do with it. What I'm seeing a lot as I meet with people one-on-one is they're not understanding the principles of what I went over in the last 40-day challenge, which is about weight loss. Now, some of them didn't do that 40-day challenge, but I want to revisit a couple of things there. And then I want to stomp my foot and get you guys to recognize that if your focus is not on healing the gut, which is all about the stuff in the UTC manual itself, that's gluten-free, dairy-free, no alcohol. That's where it starts. Some of you need to be even more aggressive than that. Like I mentioned, if some of you have lectin intolerances, which means those would be like things like beans and nightshade foods, all those things, you would have to cook them very, 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 very well. Okay. And even there, you may have issues. Again, some of this stuff is individualized. So some people have IBS issues, some people have Crohn's, some people have this, some people have that. Autoimmune diseases, I promise you, almost always start in the gut after an acute stressor. More than 90% of autoimmune diseases can be brought back to a specific day where after this day, I started to feel worse. Okay, because one of the things that happens when you are under acute trauma is that rest and digest system gets compromised. Your whole, right? So think about it. Your rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve gets like paralyzed in a certain regard because your body thinks you're, running from a saber-toothed tiger. And if the gut is already unhealthy, you're going to trigger a cascade of events that map onto gut permeability. Now, I happened to go through a terrible stressor 10 years ago, but luckily I was healthy. I lost 23 pounds in 35 days. When you want to talk about stress, I didn't sleep. How is it that I survived that scenario without terrible gut issues? Well, I didn't survive it without, terrible mental issues. Some of you have experienced that to some degree. But I told you guys, I had years where I went through difficulty sleeping at night, terrible nightmares, the whole thing. I'm not trying to be like, woe is me. I'm just letting you guys know that we all go through stuff, and how we react to it very much depends on how we've prepared our bodies for that trauma. I say everybody's an athlete. Why? Because as soon as you slip on that ice, you find out real quick how fast your body reacts to the fall, and whether or not you break a hip or whether or not you get your ass back up and walk and go, man, I almost broke my neck. But there's a reason why you didn't break your neck if you're in shape and if you train and if the muscles are strong, okay? Well, it's the same thing. Something inevitably in life is going to trigger a trauma in you. And depending on how healthy your body is, will tell you how resilient the system will be to that trauma. Now, I'm saying all this because the UTC is designed with the gluten-free, the dairy-free, the no alcohol, obviously no smoking, like just bad habits. I know it's easier said than done. I recognize that. But in the UTC seminars, I go into great detail about if we don't start here, you're never going to get healthy from the inside out. It has to be from the inside out. It's just, it's great that maybe you can lift all these weights and get a new PR on the bench, and maybe you can squat 400 pounds. But if you're not healthy on the inside, then it's all for nothing, right? So I have met with people privately who don't understand how important beginning this process is, where you have to understand that although some of the foods that I eat, like the Ezekiel bread, is technically not gluten-free. Now, it is not a highly refined carb, but understand that I went through all this already. I've gone through all of the dairy-free, gluten-free. When I was younger, I actually figured this out because in high school I had terrible allergies, and I was a really good cross-country runner, right? I was a really good cross-country runner despite the fact that I was terribly allergic to ragweed right during the cross-country season, and I still did well. But when I got into my early 20s, I recognized what was happening with foods, and as I started to eliminate foods and dairy and gluten, as I started to recognize how much my body responded to those things, I was able to heal myself of all of those allergies. And my father had allergy shots till the day he died, literally. So it is possible to reverse many of these things that you see as chronic problems. Now, some people, maybe you can't reverse it completely, but you can certainly mitigate those issues. And I can line up dozens of people who have worked with me and have listened to what I've said and followed the instructions, who will tell you he's right. I am 90% better today than I was a year ago. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying that it's worth it. It has to start with understanding that if you're not doing away with the highly refined carbs, if you're still eating like crappy forms of dairy, I would not be eating dairy or gluten, and especially alcohol, if I were you during these 40 days where you're trying to get healthy and lose weight. All right. The other thing is just this whole concept of losing weight. Guys, in the 40 days, I explained to you that 3,500 calories really is a pound. But when you take food, which is out here, what it is matters, right? So if it's protein as opposed to, let's just say, high fructose corn syrup, well, protein is going to be about 40% more thermogenic after you digest it than high fructose corn syrup, which means that if you have 1,000 calories of high fructose corn syrup and 1,000 calories of protein, by the time you're done digesting it, you'll have only consumed about 600 calories of that protein, where you're going to get almost all of that high fructose corn syrup. Why? Because the body works so hard at digesting protein. It's an effort. Now, ironically, that's the same reason why people with broken guts have issues digesting protein and fats. This is why if you don't fix your gut, it becomes a perpetual problem. It's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. It's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. So it is very easy for fats to pass right through your body. And if you look down in the toilet bowl, and if there's a log there, hopefully it's a log and not just, mud in the toilet bowl. But if it's a log and it's floating, If it's floating, that's a fatty stool. That means that your stool is fat. That means that you're not emulsifying those fats in the duodenum, in the small intestine. That is telling you something, all right? These are things that we went over in the previous 40-day challenges and before. And I have a whole digestion video, guys, that I encourage you all to watch. But video is getting long. I'm going to stop here, but I wanted to make those clarifications, and hopefully you guys can make some of those adjustments. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the day.